Okay, so when I first kind of um, felt inspired to give this talk, there was a real certain thing that kind of came to mind. And when I was preparing for it and feeling into it, it still felt a similar resonance. But yeah, I just want to speak to kind of what's alive in me today. Um, and what's alive in me today is this really curious observation that I have noticed throughout the years and that has continued to come back of what kind of happens in one's body when you're in different environments. Um, and what it takes to really be oneself in that environment and really thrive, to feel like all of you there and feel well and good. Um,
What is it? I can't. There isn't any house. It's only Carol who's there. She's closed.
let's see. That's okay. Looks like
Sorry.
someone's something. Um, so somehow I have kind of found myself just in many different environments and a lot of environments that are way different than maybe I'm comfortable with or used to, and coming up against things that I've never experienced before. Um, and I've really noticed myself adapting and shifting and really like that became front and center, like noticing, wow, I really need to adapt here in order to um, kind of function and be myself. Um, and I feel this has probably been happening most of my life of just kind of wherever I am kind of, needing to orient myself to the space. How do I engage in this space and be in it? Um, but this really kind of came, to head when I went on this trip to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I just kept feeling really drawn to go visit Santa Fe. And I was really kind of curious in that because I was like, why am I going there? I've heard of it. It sounds cool, but it just kept coming up. So I went and it's a totally different climate than Kentucky, where I am, and totally different climate than, hold on, my dog here. Totally different climate than I had often been drawn to. Um, it's the desert in Santa Fe, and I was often, just drawn and going to places that are humid tropics, warm and wet. And when I was in Santa Fe, it's very dry and deserty. And I found right away that I noticed the different feelings in my body of feeling super dry. And okay, so I need to drink more water in this environment. And, something that's wonderful about travel is, enjoying the foods that are there and meeting the people and the culture and, um, just kind of noticing while I was walking around the town there, um, what restaurants are there, what foods are in the local markets, how are the people dressed, and, how does one thrive living here in Santa Fe in this environment. Um, and I just found it, really curious of like, there's lots of Mexican food there and lots of spicy peppers and, you know, foods that grow in the desert. Um, and it kind of led me to, this is all makes one up. One's body, what you're eating, what you're around. And, um, thinking to animals in their environment, you know, they can only eat what is there. They live, in the environment that's in that place where they are. They build homes with the materials that are available, and all around Santa Fe, there's adobe homes, and um, that's curious how that works with the environment too, of using, the sun and the resources. And, um, I just kind of was taking all of that in and noticing, within my own self, um, how that impacts me, in real physical needs of like, okay, I feel I must, drink more water and eat different foods to function here because I'm very dry and hot and need to be cool and moist. And, um, also being in cityscapes is different too. There's a different aliveness and energy there than if one is in the forest or the mountains or another, the countryside. And so, um, noticing how that means different shifts in oneself too, and where you put your energy and your attention, and what activities it may kind of direct you to take. After having maybe a long day in the city, there's some sort of balance of, slowness and slow activities, um, in that. And so it's kind of led me to this deeper pondering of how, life is always balancing out. There's a certain environment, um, a certain climate somewhere, but there's often things in that environment to support one's being of thriving. Otherwise, one must adapt in some way, like animals, they grow feathers or they grow fur when it's very cold out, and or they move, birds, they fly south for um, you know, summer, for winter, for warm. Um, so you must adapt in some way, either in that current climate or, moving to a climate that's more conducive, or something, you'll die, right? It's kind of like adapt, move, or die in some ways. Um, and continue to evolve and grow. So, um, it's it's just a very curious, noticing, in what I feel it has led me to this place in myself of knowing more deeply what those fundamental aspects are of me. What makes Sydney thrive, which is very different from everyone. But I feel in all these instances, it's kind of led me to this place of perhaps boundaries of like, okay, this is, critical to me. This is inherent. I can adapt and mold myself this much, but these pieces, like, I need water. I know this about myself. I'm very drawn to water and just flock to it. um, and so like this is something that's, without so much flexibility, maybe, in being by water or whatever it is. And maybe these pieces can shift, in this environment. And so oftentimes, you know, coming back from these trips, there was a time in my life when I took a bunch of trips to many different places. I noticed my home environment, I would shift. I would be drawn to different things. And I think more so noticing like what I really valued and what was important. Um, and how some of those aspects, like of what maybe how one thrives in one's body or what one loves, can be found to different degrees in every environment. But perhaps there's some environments that are really just really like, woo, you're singing. Like it just feels, ooh, a really good fit. Um, and yeah, it's just led me to deeper clarity and this kind of really big contemplation of, um, all the things that one does to be in a place of wellness. I feel like health is a big topic and well-being. I feel like that's certainly brought up here and it just seems everywhere in the world. People, there's so many practices and therapies and different things to do and, certain foods to eat and acupuncture and medicine and supplements. And it's like all of these things are well and important and aspects of one's care routine. And um, I've noticed, needing different degrees and different practices of those in every environment. And I think, again, going back to like that environment that just makes you sing, it's like when I was in a place like that, I noticed some certain things, living in the city were unneeded when I was out in the country. It just, that environment just naturally supported it. I was without having to outsource that um, need or whatever was missing. Um, and so it's just really interesting to me, um, of all the different things that we need and what what makes one's body thrive. And um, yeah, I I feel that's perhaps a good place maybe to leave it just in the curiosity and I'm curious and perhaps something for the meditation or whatnot or down the road is what what is that kind of place of thriving in your body, like, and what does that look like what does that feel like to thrive um, in your body, and where have you felt that, where have you known that, um, what are the environments, the spaces, the places, the situations, the people you're around, and the things you are doing in that. Um, and yeah, yeah, just that interesting place. So um, I feel, yeah, in that maybe we can all just take a breath together and then segue into our next part of our meeting. So just taking a breath, inhale in And exhale out.